Hi, I'm Leo, and welcome to the fourth episode of Rediscovering Ashina, my playthrough Sekiro, where beyond just going through the game, I will retranslate all the text from Japanese to English, looking for differences with the original translation, and go into details on the cultural references and themes of Japanese folklore and mythology that were deeply influential in creating the setting and story of Sekiro. That might be lost on Western audiences without as much time to lose and willingness to translate a lot of stuff and read a lot of stuff than I have. And I will also probably talk about the design of the game because I'm a game designer and that's something that I can talk about with some level of comfort and authority. Before we start, I have a confession to make. This is not the first time that I record this part of the game because I've been having a lot of technical issues at my home for the past week. And last time I tried, long story short, I went through these 15 minutes into these areas before I realized that the recording wasn't going, so I lost that recording. So we didn't lose anything much. But I picked up some items. There were a couple of events. For the items, it's pretty easy. I just have them in my inventory, so when I go where they used to be, I can just reread the description. For a couple of other stuff, unique stuff, it's just been lost. But luckily, I have my lower quality recording of the run I do before. Whoop, everything is falling down. Before I record normally. Which has all the things that we lost. It's just in a lower quality and I will just edit that in and it should be fine. I apologize for this. I will try to be more careful with that as we go on. So, last we left off, Sekiro, Wolf, our protagonist, had met an old woman and a blind wounded soldier who appeared to recognize his voice even though he has no memory of him. The woman gave him a charm and asked him to offer it to the Buddha, praying for the safety of the young lord. When he brought the charm to the sculptor told him that the charm seemed to know him, even though, again, Wolf has no memory of it. And when we offered it to the Buddha and prayed, we found ourselves here, with no further information. So, let's go and explore. Where are we? And why are we here? Oof. I was really afraid I was going to just fall down. Now, back here, I don't think there was anything. I think it was just a very suspicious clearing with nothing much in it. Rain is falling. As we discussed in the last episodes, we are at the border of a river and we can see this huge river and we can see that there is an item over there and there were another one over there, over those rocks. But I already picked it up. Here were just some ashes, and there is this figure, which is exactly the same kind of figure that took Kuro from us after Genichiro cut off our arm.
お主、フクロウのせがれか。何があった？賊どもが。 平田屋敷に巫女様を急ぐのじゃ。今は幾年だ？何をおかしな。教えてくれ。流泉詣の年であろう。流泉詣。 3年前か。どういうことだ。武士殿は古い記憶と言った。何も覚えてはおらぬが、これは
So yeah, very mysterious. This guy is dead. If we inspect him, we just have the same the same dialogue again. And we appear to be 3 years in the past, at the Hirata Estate, in a moment where Wolf here has no memory of. We don't really know who these people are yet, but they were killed. Apparently this guy was killed by thieves who assaulted the estate, and apparently did some damage at least. Those are the thieves. So we can start by going around, and I want to remark how this huge river over here in most games can be expected to be kind of an impenetrable, like if you fall in that you just die, it's like a pit. But in Sekiro, during the tutorial, if you remember, we had some water, and we know the wolf can swim. The fact that the item that was supposed to be over there was also like a clue, since there was no way to get there without swimming. But this entire river is not a death trap, it's another explorable area, which is pretty cool. So here was an item. Here we had the Dousing powder. Medicine for treating burns. Heals the burn status abnormality and for a time decrease burn build-up, increase burn resistance, and reduces damage from incoming burn attacks. When fire is used on the battlefield, Dousing powder is crucial for survival. Now, this tells us that there is fire damage in this game, and apparently also fire status, and like other From Software game, there is a build-up of the status and then the status clicks. And also reveals that fire attacks were used in warfare during this time period, which shouldn't come as a surprise if you know anything about ancient warfare. But yeah, Japan had it pretty bad, like had a very bad relationship with fire, I can already tell you that. As we can see, there is a lot of flammable stuff around, and all the houses, like the main houses, were made of wood and papers that were very flammable, so I expect that fire attacks will be very cruel but also very effective in attacking settlements and stuff like that. And yeah, the fact that it seems to have Dousing powder in a place that was like barred, like they shut the gate closed, means that the thieves probably brought it there. Here we had another item. I don't think there was any. I think it was either here or back here, but yeah, there was an item that wasn't in any bag, and the item was key items maybe? Yes, this treasure carp scale. A sparkling scale from a treasure carp. To the average person it is just a beautiful scale, but there are some who exalt a certain master who consider these scales amongst the most precious things in the world. For this reason, collecting them could be worthwhile. So we found a scale here, and there were carps in the water. As we see, we can swim and we can also jump on the bridge, but I won't do that just yet. I will be a ninja and not like, oh, we can walk here. I didn't know we could walk here. Oh, that's interesting. I think I only ever passed through like here. But yeah, there were carps swimming here, which is the reason why I have 4 carp scales. I will show them in my other recording. They're big fishes, and when you kill them, they give you the scales. And if you have played any Dark Souls or Demon Souls or Bloodborne, also, you can hide ourselves into the water. This is the same hiding thing that we can get when we hide in the underbrush on land, and we can do that in the water as well. So yeah, the carps act like the crystal lizards in Demon and Dark Souls, in that they are enemies that just run away from you. If you don't catch them quick enough, they just disappear. But they're much easier than the crystal lizards to get, because they swim and they're not really that hard to catch. And also, instead of crafting material, they give you those scales. What are those scales for? You might be asking yourselves. Well, Ask no more. So here there was just a light coin bag, and the level design purpose for this was to kind of attract us here, told us that we could swim, and also...
ここのお主、もし、お主、鱗を持っておいでかい。もし持てば、存分に褒美を取らそうぞ。
So, Pot Noble Harunaga, a very creepy NPC that gives no explanation who he is or what he wants, except that he really wants scales. He has 4 items to sell, on sale, that's the word. The Divine Grass, the Withered Red Gourd, a right masked fragment, and a floating passer stacks, which is a combat art. We cannot afford to get this, so I will not read them. If you want to read them, you can pause the video, but I will not focus on them, and I will just focus on the ones that we can get. The Divine Grass, a secret medicine that fully restores vitality and cures all status abnormalities. One small part of Ashina is exceedingly old. The ancient soil, rocks, and water that pervaded the land are said to have attracted the attention of the gods. The Dr. Dogen studied the plants in this ancient place, resulting in the recipe for this special medicine. Let's get this. And the Withered Red Gourd. A carved Withered Red Gourd filled with medicinal water. The gourd's medicine refills upon rest. Reduces burn buildup and slightly increased burn resistance. It cannot heal the burn status abnormality, however. This is an interesting item to have, something that reduces the buildup but doesn't cure the status. But yeah, we'll take that as well. Now, this item, I will have a lot to talk about with this item after the playthrough part. The description of this is a very different in Japanese. I already know this. So I think this would be the Divine Grass episode. I was looking forward to this, and it gives some quite incredible amount of information compared to the English version. But yeah. We will not worry about the items for now. We will come back here when we have enough scales to buy them.
お主よ、我は恋になりたいのじゃ。長い時を育ちとともにある大きな恋。老いぼれぬ恋にの。
Well, now we know what he wants. He, they, them want. They want to become a carp.
お主よ。
Yeah, it's the same. So, this is where I stopped last time. I think that I lost a couple of dialogues. If I have, I will put them here in post-production.
もしお主、恋の鱗を知らんかい。キラキラ光る宝鯉の鱗。それを持てば存分に褒美を取らそうぞ。
But overall, yeah, like we don't really get much more information than this. He likes scales. He wants to become a carp. Maybe that's connected to why he's connecting carp scales. I hadn't got the dialogue because, as you've noticed, you can only talk to him if you buy something from him, which I hadn't done yet.
良き心がけ褒めてとらす。また鱗持っておいでや。
Yes. Oh, he's so creepy. And there is just mist in there. So there is a reason why he's here. Well, not exactly a reason, but more like he's not just randomly. There isn't just a random pot hoop that sprouted here. I will get into that a lot further in the game. So we're talking about a lot of episodes for now. I hope I will be able to look back into this. But now, yeah, this is all that I did before I realized that I wasn't recording last time. And decided to stop for reasons. I will not go into that now. Whoa, dog. Ah, that was pathetic. So, let me see if I can not be pathetic. I was becoming better a while ago because a new update for the game has released when there is a boss gauntlet mode, and I was getting back into shape by doing that because that is very harsh. But I seem to have not recovered. I can do this. I swear that I can jump into this boat. But yeah, I will do my best to not be super bad at the game. So, a mere possession balloon, which we already read in the last episode. It's interesting that it's here, but I will get into the details of that after. Well, I can say this, like, these were clearly the boats that the thieves used to get here, right? And they had that, which is a religious instrument, so the thieves seems to be following the same religion, same Ashina religion that uses them as religious implements. And they apparently prayed before the raid, which makes sense. And the thieves are very red. And they have dowsing powder, so yeah. They probably use fire, as we can assume from the fact that the city ahead seems to be on fire. There it is. So, we want to be sneaky, because there is a lot of them, and while they're not super... Oh, come on. Okay. While they're not super duper dangerous, you know, it's better not to put myself at risk, also because I say that, but considering the, how well I handled the dog beforehand, I cannot really assume that I will not be destroyed. The shurikens are very useful, and this guard is not the brightest tool in the shed. So, for the ones of you who know the new update that was released very randomly a couple of months ago, after the last time I recorded, it's been a while, it also added online features. I am playing the game offline. I don't want to be distracted by those while I record this, because it's not really that kind of series, but if you were wondering why there weren't anything, that's why. That was better. I've been playing Neo, which has a different control scheme, and that means that there is a chance that I will do some mistakes with the buttons, like trying to dash with X instead of circle. Also, look at this beautiful thing! This is Genbu. I will talk about that later, but it's one of the 4 guardian beasts, and I do not remember which of the 4 cardinal points it represents, but it is a snake turtle, and it's an important mythological figure, and we can hang on to it. It's the thing that we grab onto if we climb up there. Okay, so let's get into the settlement proper. That is a guard, which seems to be quite good. This is a dead horse. Poor horse. And we found the first idol inside the settlement, the estate bath. Let's rest, because why not? I think we got everything we needed to get outside. So, here we can find some ceramic shard where the game is basically telling us, come on, use them, but I will not, because the ceramic shard are not super well designed, honestly. They're not easy to use to lure people. But actually, I can do maybe... Nah, he doesn't get any closer than this. Fair enough. I will be moving unseen back here. Here we have an old tree with a spirit emblem near to it. I do not know why a spirit emblem is here. As I talked about in the last episode, spirit emblems or the kapashiras are, I think, kind of a a representation of regrets and grudges that the dead leave behind when they are untimely killed. I do not know if this means that these three specifically get some regrets or if somebody died here. I generally cannot tell, but there was one here. Maybe from a design perspective, it's just an indication to kind of attract people here, because it's a good way to kind of go around the guards, and also we can find a sugar here near this bamboo grove. One of the sugars that the monks of Senpou Temple have scattered around. Oh, come on. Scattered around the lands of Ashina to celebrate the fighters. Here we have an archer. Interestingly enough, oil. Plain oil. When the jar breaks, the oil covers everything nearby. Enemies doused in oil are easily set alight, causing them to take additional vitality damage from fire attacks and making them more vulnerable to the burn status and to abnormalities. So yeah, fire is a team. Damn it. Can I hide? Yeah, everybody saw. They did not like that, but they didn't really properly see me, so I think if we just hang back a little bit, they should calm down. If they get too close, okay, that's fine. So that goddamn guard has the one with the torch, as we see, alerts the others if he sees me. He has really good eyesight. The way that the sneak mechanics in Sekiro work is that enemies are either incredibly sensitive or they're just blind. And sentinel kind of enemies are usually less, they're usually more fragile than other enemies, but they can just attract a crowd, which is not good. So that is also an archer, and that brings me back to what I wanted to say before. Oh, goddammit, I am dodging again with X. It's interesting that the thieves have used arrows, while the samurais that we fought in Ashina use rifles. Rifles, like fire weapons, firearms, were not as widespread a practice. They were entirely military in nature, and while swords, everyone could still have a sword at this point. Ooh, I was hoping not to get hit in the air. Oof, okay. Let me calm down. Let's go. No. I am being mediated by a goddamn thief. Oh, I am sorry about that, but it was very fun to see how they fight. They fight dirty. They throw sand in my face. They punch me to make me lower my guard. Having played Neo before, it's really messing up my instinct. I'm pressing all the wrong buttons. So let's get this. Dead people, first full of ashes. Closed door, bear from the other side, and another sentinel, as we can see from how quickly this guy spots us if we just pass in front of him. But I think we can go around and get into this little section here without being seen. Here there is something on the ground. More enemies over there. Another sugar. This was just dropped here, it wasn't even in a bag. I'm assuming it's not the thieves who has it, it seems to be given to the military. Let's see. It doesn't seem to be an eavesdropping. Whoop. It's so finicky. Oh well. Oh, it's because he's an archer. Archers also have great eyesight. So, Ooh, 2 with the axe. Well, this will just wreck my posture if I let them. So let's try and not let them. Pellets and dowsing powder. Okay, so for now the only fire damage that we could have got was from the torches of the Sentinels guy, but luckily they never really attacked us. This was a big house and it's been destroyed. It's been burned down, ransacked. People inside were slaughtered with no mercy. And they were making... I don't know if they were making this or would just hang the Sandals here. I haven't done my research for the video yet, so maybe I will have something of interest to say about the Sandals in the post Let's Play part of it. And they had pellets, so they had medicines back here. This looks like a warehouse of some sort. I don't know yet if these people were like the village elders or something, but we have, if I manage to... We have a village here, a settlement where people have been massacred and just left for dead on the street. Now, knowing that there is an archer there, I will try and get the archer out of the way as the first order of business, because that guy is terrible. Also, that's a dog. Oh no. That was another dog, and everybody's now warned of my presence, so I will carefully hide. I think if I manage to go back up there... Yes, okay, good. They shouldn't find me. So yes, there are also dogs. I think there is a third one somewhere, and I don't want that. Was that a dog? I don't think that's a dog. So I will not kill them right now because I don't want to attract their attention, because there is a dialogue if I manage to actually be sneaky here. Ah, that guy is right in the way. He shouldn't be very important. Maybe I can do this. Actually, why tempt fate? Let's just move over here. Oh, god damn it. Okay. And now let's just... Ooh! Oh yeah, we got the skill points. I will clear this area and then I will do something with that. I forgot. I didn't realize when we got the points. Oh, because I think it's... I probably got them during the last missed recording. Oh, I got seen. Damn it. Okay. Let's get away from here because I don't want to lose that part. And now that I realize that I have all those skill points, let's actually use them. So... but I just killed the archer. I don't want to redo that. I can just use them and just not rest. That's right. I'm not forced to rest. So, let's get the Mikiri counter and the Whirlwind Slash, and let's read them. Acquire Combat Art Whirlwind Slash. A spinning attack that can hit several enemies at once. The sharp cut combined with the force of the spin can strike multiple foes and deal damage even when guarded. When surrounded by enemies, the Shinobi technique can cut open a path to victory. And Mikiri counter enables one to counter enemy thrust attacks by stomping down on an enemy's weapon, dealing a large amount of damage to posture. It is nearly impossible to perceive the speed of a thrust, but not for the sharp eyes of a Shinobi. So, the Mikiri counter specifically is an absolute must-have for this game to work properly. Like, it's the way to deal with thrust attacks, which are unblockable, unless you block them perfectly. So I really wanted to have this as soon as possible. And the Whirlwind Slash is just good to have. Combat Arts. Yes, they must be equipped and we can use them while Firing, yes. Combatants, Whirlwind Slash. This is it. It's really cool, and it's also very useful. I tend not to use them much because, again, I'm not really a pro gamer in the sense that I don't use a lot of all the tools the game give you. I tend to focus on just blocking and dodging and attacking, but when I do remember to use them, they are always very useful. So they all calm down. Let's explore this path. Some tranquility now. Because this sound is caused by that guy who is just sleeping away. Oh, we woke him. Too drunk to even call for help. Ceramic shard. I like to believe that since these are made from pottery, this was like from the pottery that we was drinking from, but that's probably a stretch. There are dead people inside, and there is also that guy who seems to be pretty drunk. See if I can get it. Oh, I cannot get it? Oh no, it's because I distracted them before. I'm going to get this dialogue. I will... Tell you what, I will get it... No, you know what? It's going to stretch a little bit the runtime, but it's a cool little dialogue. And I want you guys to experience it, so I will do now something that I was planning to do anyway. Which is, we got the Mikiri counter and we got this idol here. So I'm going to go back to the temple now for a hot second. And we're going to do a couple of stuff. This episode is going to be very, very dense. There is a lot in the Hirata Estate to talk about. As you've seen, like you have enemies that sleep and are drunk and are just reveling, and it's very different. Yes, that's what I wanted. We can finally finish the tutorial missions for Hanbei and get the last of his dialogues for for a very long while. Yeah, she has nothing more to say to us. Yeah. She has nothing more to say. But he might have things to say. He's not sculpting, I just noticed. There is something. I don't think it's anything, but let me just quickly check. Nah, okay. Yeah, you will come to understand what I was checking for there in time.
戻ったか。あれは夢なのか、それとも誠にあったことなのか。さてな、夢かうつつか、わしにも定かなことはわからん。一つ言えるのは、仏様はお前さんの古い記憶を起こしてくださっているだけじゃ。お前さんがどう思いどう覚えていたか、すべてはそれ次第じゃ。見るものすべてが正しく起こったことかはわからぬ。そういうことじゃ。
So yeah, he doesn't have much answers to give us of why we can go into the past. Yeah, that's the usual. And I don't think I have anything new, right? No. Thank you. Do you have anything new?
お前さん
Nope.
ではな、また。
Fair enough. So, Hanbei, let's finish your tutorials and dialogues now. Whoop. That's my clock.
そこもとか。それがしを。
Yes. So, I do not remember what I did last time. I have the free combat, the fundamentals, so I need to do the advanced stuff, I think. I will just do them now, and I will either speed them up if they're useless. Okay, no, I haven't done this before, so I need to do this. These are not particularly interesting, but they tell us a bit about the advanced mechanic. Oh, that was bad. That was good. So yeah, timing. This is why Sekiro is basically a rhythm game, in a way. A very aggressive rhythm game, but a rhythm game. The rhythm is what lets you win things. Yeah, this is the one that explains how vitality and posture work. So, or well, the relationship between them basically. The lowest is vitality, the slower he regains posture, and the more posture damage we do to him when hitting him. Ow. So you can technically, I think, defeat most enemies just defending against them, but you do very little posture damage until you get their health down. And once you get the health down, you can do death blows like that. And that's the balance between the two. So, yeah, here is what he explains that you can do with thrust attacks when you don't have the Mikiri counter. Let me try that again. I'm not used to parrying thrusts, I'm used to do this. That's the Mikiri counter, it's really cool. It's much easier to do than blocking a thrust. And yeah, I'm making the Mikiri counter training a bit redundant here, but that's how it is. There are the sweep attacks, which are the ones that you block like this. There you go. It's very brutal, but also very cool. Ooh. He is very generous with his whip attacks. Usually if you get hit, you get just blown away. Like, this is not what normal enemies do to you. Woohoo. Oh yeah, I need to do that. I was hoping to lower his health so I could do it in one hit, but it's not working. Okay, sorry, my bad. Okay, hopefully this part is not too boring to watch. Probably is. After this we'll be done. Yeah. Honestly, showing the Mikiri counter training is kind of pointless already showing it to you. I wanted to get this one. This is where he uses everything that he has used until now. Thrusts and sweeps and consecutive attack, and he deflects her own attack. Ah. My timing is off. Oh, didn't do that on purpose, but yeah.
良き立ち合いだった。切られて意味があるというのは存外に心地よいものだな。じゃがそこもと少しは加減してくれ。毎度いとうてかなわぬわ。かたじけない。は？なんじゃと？痛みをこらえ切られてくれたこと、まことにかたじけなく思う。礼などよい。さっきはああ言うだが、痛みなら慣れておるさ。そうか。なんだ。それがしの死なずもそこもとの役に立ったのならば意味があったのやもしれぬ。
And that was it. He's really sweet. And unless I'm missing something, this is all that we get out of him as a character until quite later in the game. He's really sweet and he will let us kill him over and over again. I really like Hanbei. I am sorry that he doesn't have much of a role in the game, but I really like him. So back to those bandits, shall we? Let's see. So let me see if I can actually do this now. Who got me? Ah, the archer. Okay, I am hoping that the archer will stop looking for us, and everyone will just go back to their positions. Yeah, seems to be working. Come on, come on, you got them, archer. Come on. I know that. Okay. Oh, this guy is up. This is the reason why I hate that archer with a passion. He is... It's so hard to not be spotted by him. But last time I tried to kill him first, it didn't go so good. Whoa. The dog is angry. Okay, when he turns around... I don't think I've ever sneaked up on dogs this... Whoa, they're much more noisy than I expected. That guy was like, who just killed my dog? Oh well, must have been the wind. Okay, oh no. Easy does it. Come on, give me the time.
よく燃えるの。火吹き筒とはよく言ったものよ。景気づけにはぴったりだ。ちげえね。新規臭い田舎屋敷だ。せめて最後くらいはパーッとね。
Yeah, all of this was for that dialogue. The fire breathing thing. And the drunk guy managed to reach the fire. I hope he doesn't burn himself. Oh no. I hate that archer. Well, now I can stop trying to be stealthy if I really want to, because I got what I wanted. So yeah, a fire-breathing barrel, which is how they made that fire over there. Oh, you can see the fire build up. Look at them just drinking away while that guy is screaming at me. Oh, they're launching... See, they throw oil and then the guy... Whoa. The guy who never stopped drinking. Ooh, dogs. Dogs everywhere. Ooh, this is a mess. This is a real mess. Let me get out of here. Okay. Dog. Oh, that was the oil. Let's kill the dog. The dog gave me a little bit of regeneration power, or resurrection power, sorry. Okay, let's heal. And let's face them. Ow. That was a thrust, and I dodged. Oh, again. Yeah. I am not handling this very well because I'm trying to take them all on at once, which is not a good idea. I was trying to show off this thing, but didn't work very well. So let me stop trying to show off and actually deal with them properly. Okay, there is a guy up there who has heard noises and cannot find his way back here. We murdered a lot of them, and now we can collect all the little goods that are here. Medicines, and we can see that these were humble houses of just people, like farmers and craftsmen who were massacred in this attack. They collected those. I don't know what those are. I will try to see if I can find what those are. What kind of vegetables? Women being killed and dying with strong regrets. A senseless massacre for reasons that are still obscure to us. More dowsing powder. And the flame barrel, an iron barrel that spews fire, can be fitted to the Shinobi prosthetic to become a prosthetic tool. It is difficult to control the rage-filled red eyes with the power of man alone. However, a fire-based weapon could be a means of resisting them. They are said to fear fire above all else. A new prosthetic tool, a fire-based one, because fire is a thing. And a mere balloon of wealth next to a well, which again tells me about religious rituals. Whoa, what's going on? Sorry about that. My controller just deactivated. I had to deal with it. Let's resume. So, we found the fire barrel and we found the Mibu balloon of wealth next to a body of water, like the other one that we found. So it seems that water is heavily connected to the religious practice, which is not surprising. Whoops, wrong button. And more ash, which tells me that this guy was probably burned. Yeah. The thieves seems to have some grievance against the estate. And they wanted to see it burn.
なんてゲロども。おい。お主、確か忍びよな。であれば、お堂の忍びよの奴らを頭蓋を叩き割って頼む。
Cool guy. Dressed as a samurai, no less. And he directs us towards a Shinobi axe enshrined in a temple. Which for us means, hey, yay, power up, but...
兄貴、次はこのお堂ですかい。
いや、そこはいい。次に行くぞ。
けんど、供え物でもあれば重蔵様に。
やめんか。仏様には手出し無用。何度言やわかるんだ、タコが。
怒らないでおくれよ、兄貴。タコでごめんよ。
So yeah, they don't steal from the Buddha. They kill a lot, but they seem to have some standards, or at least the boss has. Somebody was in the house, which seems to have been maybe the one that heard us before. So let's deal with him before we keep exploring. Here we have the temple. And we have no problem taking from the Buddha, because we get a Shinobi axe of the monkey. A heavy black iron axe used by Shinobi can be fitted to the Shinobi prosthetic to become a working prosthetic tool. This boorish axe is used less for cutting and more for breaking things with its weight. Once the favorite weapon of a Shinobi known as the Banding Monkey of the Sunken Valley, it was lost along with his left arm. His left arm, hey? But yeah, why was an axe enshrined here? An axe that was the property of a shinobi. Why in a Buddhist temple that not even the thieves would desecrate? Also, this is a bigger house than before, so probably we are climbing the social ladder as we go up. And so we can see there was wealth left in here as well. So, more well-to-do people lived here. Chickens. And here we found a Gokan Sugar. Sugar candy made by Shinobi hunters of Mizen Temple, sustaining Gokan's blessing. Reduce posture damage taken for a time. Bite the candy and take the Gokan stance to impart its inhuman benediction as usual. Mizen monks are well versed in the art of killing Shinobi, an undertaking that demands a body with an unshakable core. So, new sugar, a new kind of candy, made not by Senpo Temple, but by Mizen Temple, which we hadn't heard before, and it's used by Shinobi hunters, which it's not a good sign for us if we found this kind of stuff here. And this is the shortcut to where we were before, and that's the archer from before that I don't want to attract. Also, before the two thieves mentioned a Lord Jizo, so he seems to be the one in charge for this raid. Yes, here. Come here, little chicken. My favorite thing about the chickens here is that it implies that these were just, like, it's not wild, huge animals, they were just chickens. They are used as farm animals, even as aggressive and dangerous as the chicken here seems to be. Which is very funny to me. Medicine scattered in the ground? Maybe as fertilizers? Maybe we just picked up some herbal medicines? I don't know. Probably we picked up some herbal medicine. Up here we have a little nest like the one that I lost in the previous episode. Here we are where we found the candy before. And is there anything of interest inside the house? More chickens, of course! Ooh, I like that these chickens are tankier than the dogs. These chickens are strong. And the sugar. I wonder why the sugar was here. Maybe one of the people here were like soldiers. There seems to be like farmers because they had a field here. But it's also a big house, so maybe this was like the local samurai. Maybe it was that guy's house. And that's why he had the sugar. Now here we have a beautiful field of blue. And a person. And not an aggressive person. In this other temple, which was the other temple that they were referring to, with the symbol of Ashina over it.
よう旦那、あんたも火事場泥棒ですかい？旦那は見たとこ忍びですかね。何か探し物でも？ まあ何にせよ、ここはあっしが先に見つけた場所でさ。よそを漁ってください。ああ、そういえばどっかの崖上に三重の塔が見えやしたぜ。あんだけご立派な塔だ。きっと中にはお宝がしまわれてるに違いねえ。あっしならそう思いやすね。
So yeah, there is this guy here who seems to be to want us to leave, but he doesn't seem to be with the raiders. He seems to be just a hanger-on. I say that for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, he's not armed, and he's not nearly as red as the other guys are. Second, all the other places were like burned down and destroyed. This place is intact, and he's here. Like the door is still closed. Which led me believe that he's not like he didn't come with the expedition. I'm not even sure the other thieves know that he's here. He probably just sneaked in like we just did. He climbed over and is taking advantage of the looting to do some looting of his own, but with less killing. Yeah, it's the usual. And he just mentioned this pagoda to just kind of get us out of the way. Behind here, this other temple behind here, this monk in his bamboo grove, hidden away. We find this. A bundled Jesus statue, small Buddha effigy bound in red cloth, raising prayers between one palms to restore an odor of resurrective power. To enswathe a Jesus statue is to express feelings of parental love. The bundle of cloth is to at least ensure that the little one goes on in peace. Yeah, this is an offering for a dead child, and it was left here behind in the middle of this carved path. I generally do not know why, but it's really sweet and sad, I find, a little bit. But anything that is kind of commemoration for the soul of a dead child is sad, but there is a little bit of a story here that I feel like I'm not getting.
Oh, ここを開けやがれ。こそこそと隠れてんのは分かってんだ。おとなしく投降しないと痛い目見るぞ。聞こえてんのか？ああ。
So, this place seems to be holding on better than the village with the common people. Ooh, another axe guy. I keep exchanging blows where I really shouldn't. Oh well, this episode didn't have the best gameplay, unfortunately. I apologize for that.
どうか動かないでください。傷に触ります。
いや、行かねばならぬ。族どもの中に忍び狩りの僧兵が混ざっている。あれは手だれよ。どうしても私が行かねば。
無理です。この傷ではとても。
So, we learn a couple of things here. First, this was a warrior, a guard maybe, and these people seems to be in a better condition than the village we saw before. Like, not just because they weren't slaughtered, also they have better houses. Those were just shacks. These actually have proper, not just wooden walls and everything. And second, we get other mentions of the Shinobi hunter that we got. We got his smell before with the sugar. Now we have confirmation that there is one.
お主、若様の忍びじゃな。おう。肝心な時におらぬとんだ役立たずめ。いや、もしや、お主賊を手引いたのではあるまいな。さもなくばこの平田屋敷が、こうもあっけなく落ちようものか。そうよ。そうに違いないわ。いねえ。裏切り者は
He seems pretty angry with us. But yeah, this attack was weird. He blames us because we were nowhere to be seen, and the attack was too well timed to be casual. So what happened? We don't remember. Did we really betray Kura?
誰ですか？
族ではない。
あなたは若様の。あ、よかった。忍び殿、族どもの目的は若様です。あやつらはすでに竹林坂上にいたり、お屋敷に火をかけています。若様の脱出も叶わなかったご様子。お願いです、忍び殿。若様をお救いください。これをあなたに託します。
Antidote powder. A powerful antidote concocted by the Sunken Valley clan. Heals status abnormality poison and temporarily increases poison resistance. Magnetite deposits are found in a sunken valley, but the place is dangerously toxic. Antidote powder is essential for anyone attempting to mine the ore.
どうかお役立てを。
承知。
She seems a lot more agreeable and doesn't immediately accuse us. Oh, look at this. How cool is this that they just had the little moat leading to the well. But yeah, she gives us an antidote, which we assume that is going to be relevant. Oh, we can see there are people with shields up there, and shields are bad news. So this is actually where we're going to retreat for now. And I'm going to conclude the episode pretty soon. First, I want to say a couple of things. So, first is the fact that she gives us the antidote, so we can assume that there is going to be something poisonous up ahead, if that is something that she feels. Whoop, I forgot that these guys were still alive. If she feels that there is something that might help us. Secondly, the antidote power mentioned the Sunken Valley again. And the Sunken Valley was mentioned in the axe because it was the previous owner of the axe was the leaping monkey of the Sunken Valley or something like that, I think. So now we've got more references to this Sunken Valley place. I wonder if it's going to be relevant later, huh? Now, we found 2 new prosthetic tools that we need to be fitted. One of them is going to be fire, and one of them is an axe. So let's do that. Once the loading screen allows us, at least. Hi, Emma. Anything new to say? Not really. Ooh, he's not doing well, is he? Is this the thing? Is it a thing? It's not a thing. There is a reason for that, and it's really cool. Oh. I will cut this out. Okay, sorry, I had to cut out the part where my clock was being very, very loud. So he's holding his missing arm, which is his left arm.
お前さん、何か言うか。
Oh, let me read this. The strength to load us lies in its heft. One strike can easily turn a wooden shield into splinters or shred an enemy's posture. So yeah, that's why I ran away when I saw the shields, because I wanted to have this before facing enemies with the shield. Now, before we fit the other one... Oh, really?
お前さん、
Huh. I thought he had an extra dialogue when we get the axe, because yes, like the axe is connected to him. Oh wait, it is difficult to control the rage of those with red eyes through the power of man alone. They do, however, feel the flame above all else. This tool has the power to make them tremble, so pretty much the same as the flame barrel, but we get the flame vent.
その忍び義手、随分と腕に馴染んできたようじゃな。お前さん、これを取っておきな。
Prosthetic Esoteric Text. A book of secrets that details a variety of techniques for use with Shinobi Prosthetic. Grants the ability to learn prosthetic style skills. Written by a man who abandoned the path of the Shinobi, but could not bring himself to discard his painstaking research. He never expected to pass these on to anyone else.
これをお前さんの牙でどう噛み殺すか、それが書いてある。要は忍び義手を使った戦いの術じゃな。わかった。まったく義手の忍び技などもはや無用と思っておったが、わからんものよな。
Yeah, new techniques, a new skill tree.
わしが掘る方向を見か、お前さんそれで。ではな、また。お前さん。
I don't think he has anything else. Yeah.
それではな、また。
I must have misremembered for the axe, or I missed it, which would be annoying, but I thought he had another unique dialogue for the axe specifically. But yes, we have enough with 3 prosthetics. We now have the prosthetics too. What was it called? Oh yeah, skill menu. The prosthetic esoteric text, that's it. Which allows us to get... Oh, so let me show these things because they're really cool. That's the flame. And that's the axe. They will be useful. But yeah. We have the prosthetic axe, the shinobi axe and the prosthetic axe. The first at the chasing slice. A shinobi martial art that allows one to perform a forward dashing sword slice after using certain prosthetic tools, allowing one to close distance on enemies instantly. And the grappling hook attack. Uses the grappling hook to launch oneself at an enemy and use the momentum to perform a rolling sword attack. The shinobi prosthetic is the perfect tool for combining movement and attack into one, ensuring no movement is wasted. There is also a lot of other description, but I'm not going to read or get this now. I will instead get, for now I think, the chasing slice. And this unlocks all this other stuff. I cannot show that now, but yeah, we have a lot of skills and a lot of things to translate and to talk about. We saw a lot, even though there wasn't really a climax in our progression. We saw a lot of Hirata and how different it is from Ashina Outskirts, both as a level and as a setting. We have a lot of mysteries, a lot of questions. There is a shinobi hunter that seems to be looming over us. There is Lord Jizo, who seems to be leading the thieves. We don't know why the attack happened. We don't know what happened to Kuro. And we don't know why Wolf forgot all of this. So, with all these questions for next time, I will bid you for now good night, and then I will hopefully explain a lot of what we've just seen in more detail. Have a really good night, everyone, and thank you for watching. Goodbye. Welcome back. This is definitely the longest videos I've made yet, and there is still a lot. There is a lot that I need to go on. It's going to be very dense, so I'm going to try and be quick about it. Before I get into it though, I want to give a huge thank you to user Eric Gondo, who is the first person that ever commented on one of my videos and gave me not only a lot of word of encouragement that I really appreciated, but also a website that fills a lot of my needs in regard to the translation, because it provides me with some dialogues that are hard to find on Japanese playthrough, because for I think I mentioned this before, but the way that I go translating dialogues, since I couldn't find like a full script of the game, is I go through the Japanese playthrough of the game, also because I have it on PS4 and I cannot just put the subtitles to Japanese, unfortunately. So I need to find Japanese playthrough and read the subtitles and transcribing them and then translating it. But this of course means that I need to find playthroughs that get the same dialogues that I want, which for some of the dialogues was pretty hard. So this website is a boon. It has a lot of item description and stuff like that, which is also good to have for the same reason. And so yes, thank you so much if you're watching this, Mr. Eric Gondo, for your huge help. It is much appreciated. So as usual, I will be spending some time talking about the cultural context, a lot of the things that we have seen, and then over the translation of the dialogues and the item descriptions. But before I get to all of that, since there is already a lot to go on, I will start by going over the stuff that was either already accurate in the English translation, so that doesn't really need a further in-depth analysis of the translation from me, and the places where I just failed, so where I wanted to find some information and I just couldn't. So, starting from the things that were already accurate, these include the translation of the Estate Path Idol, all the dialogues of the Sculptor, all the dialogues of the two dying men, that is the dying samurai and the mysterious figure that we know is dressed in the same way as the people who took Kuro from us, the woman and the suspicious man's dialogues in the section of the estate that was sieged by bandits, the Eavesdrop dialogue of the bandits around the fire, and finally the descriptions of the oil, the whirlwind slash, and the grappling hook attack. So all of these things I will not mention anymore. They are perfectly understandable in the English translation of the game. And now for my failures, which will require a little bit more explanation for some of them. The first are the weird tubers or vegetables that we see in the huts of the slaughtered common people. I hoped that these would be basically giant version of a vegetable that already existed, but I couldn't find anything like that. I did find a cool Japanese catalogue of like important vegetables and cultivation techniques from the 1800s. I put it in the description for anyone interested. But I couldn't find anything that actually resembled those things specifically, so I have no idea if they are supposed to be normal vegetables, like if they are, or if they actually are like giant versions of some vegetables, or if they are completely made up. But what I can say for certain is that since I don't think they resemble anything of the more staple foods of Japanese vegetables, except maybe for sweet potatoes, but in that case they are really gigantic, we can assume that these follow the same pattern of the fact that the vegetation, like the flora and the fauna of Ashina, are weirdly big and resilient. You have giant chickens just around, you have the giant lizards, and you have trees that grow from the sheer cliffs, rock cliffs of like mountains. It's a pattern of the natural world being weird in Ashina for me. Then there are the red-skinned bandits. I wanted to find out why they were so red-skinned, and I just couldn't find anything. If anyone has an answer to that, I would be very glad to hear it. Then there is the matter of the characteristics and the differences between the temples that we find in the estate. So the smaller one with the axe in it, and the big one with the blue flowers all around and the looter trying to get into it. My knowledge of Buddhism and Japanese Buddhism in particular is unfortunately too lackluster to give me enough clarity on the significance and all the details of, for example, the location, the use, the rites used into them, to gain as much as an insight into them as I'd like. So, for example, I am pretty certain that the big one is a Buddhist temple, especially because of all the stone lanterns that are around, which are typical of Buddhist temples, but apart from that, I do not know why it's there specifically, if there is a specific reason why that temple is placed where it is, what kind of rites were conducted in it, what kind of treasures might be found inside, for example. And similarly, the smaller one is, I think, it's a Butsudan, which is a smaller shrine that is used to pay respect to the Buddha or to family ancestors. But I have no idea why the X was there. Like, it could be an offering, it could be enshrined as a relic. My main theory is that it is an offering to the Buddha from the original owner, so a way to renounce an item of killing from the original owner and kind of dedicating it to the Buddha and leaving it behind. But I still feel that I'm missing a lot of context from these things. And lastly, the smaller and most annoying of my failings is this one specific dialogue from Pot Noble Harunaga that I just couldn't find in any of the Japanese playthrough that I watched anyone that got this dialogue, so I couldn't check the subtitles. From just hearing it, I think it's pretty accurate, but as I'll get into more details about his general dialogues later, he speaks really funny, so I might have missed a lot of context in that dialogue. It's a very small one. I really doubt that there was anything of significance there, but it's really annoying to me that I couldn't find it. All of three my main playthrough that I use for these kind of things didn't bother to have this dialogue, and I checked so many others and nobody got it, so I just gave up after a while. But I'm still sore about it, so I wanted to complain about it a bit. So with that out of the way, I can finally get into the thick of it, because there is a lot that I want to go on about, starting with the cultural context and tidbits and cool information relevant to the things that we have seen. The first of which will be a correction to a mistake that I made in the past. So I've referred to the soldiers that we fight in Ashina proper as samurai, but this is not correct. The samurai as a social class were the hereditary military nobility and glorified retainers working under a daimyo, which is a more classic feudal lord, or in short, a social caste more than a wartime profession. They were warriors, but they weren't every warrior. What we actually fought for most of the time were Ashigaru, which are basically career soldiers that gain prominence mostly in the Warring States period, so the period at the end of which Sekiro is set, as the backbone of samurai armies, especially thanks to the introduction of firearms and the shift in focus towards mass battles. Ashigaru were mainly paid in loot that they found during campaigning, and could come from almost any social background, and could also sometimes be elevated to low-tier samurai status as rewards for outstanding service. So the people that we fought might have been samurai, technically, but yeah, they were definitely more likely civilian conscripts and the equivalent of mercenaries rather than proper samurai class low nobles or stuff like that. The samurai proper we will find in time. Secondly, I want to talk about Genbu, which is the mythological creature that inspired these little details, the little hang-ons that we can see on the bridge and we can attach our grappling hook on. So, Genbu, the snake turtle, was one of the 4 symbols, called Shisho in Japanese, which were also known as the 4 guardians or 4 auspicious beasts, which are 4 mythological creatures that protect the 4 cardinal directions in Chinese astrology. I'm saying for a lot of time, apologies. These are Genbu, the black tortoise of the north, Suzaku, the red bird of the south, Seiryu, the blue dragon of the east, and Byakuo, the white tiger of the west. In addition to their respective cardinal direction and color, each of them is linked to a certain virtue, element, and season, amongst other symbolic meanings. Genbu specifically represents longevity, water, and winter, respectively, and it is usually represented as either a tortoise and a snake intertwined, or just a hybrid of the two, like in this case, as these are both symbols of longevity. I don't know about winter specifically, except for my obsession for seasons and finding seasons in the game, but both longevity and water are very relevant to the beliefs and practices of Ashina and Hirata as a part of Ashina, as we'll see more about this later, except for the water, which I think we have all a clear understanding of why water is relevant. But yeah, it feels like of all the mythological figures, I can get why symbology of Genbu would be popular in Ashina for this reason. Next, I want to talk about the term estate in the name Hirata Estate, or more specifically about the term yashiki, which was the original one used in Japanese, and what it means and what it indicates as a structure. Estate is an understandable translation for this because it evokes a specific meaning in our minds, which is mostly appropriate, as when I think of an estate, I usually think about the lands and the residence of a feudal lord or another important person. Daimyo Yashiki, as it is known in Japanese, is that. It is the main residence and the lands and possessions of Daimyo, which was a feudal lord chief of a clan in medieval Japan, in feudal Japan. But it is also a lot more, because it is very much a self-sufficient small city, which includes inside it the residence for the vassals and soldiers that serve the samurai, which were called the Nagaya, the residence for the lower mid-tier samurai families that served the daimyo proper, which were called the samurai yashiki, the warehouses, the temples, the shrines, and also the mansion proper, where the daimyo, his family, and his closer retainers all live. And you can kind of see the relative social status inside this closed community. The closest one gets to the main central residence, the higher your relative status. With this as the general context, I believe that the 3 main households that we find looted, so there's the biggest buildings that we find looted, were respectively the residence of the head vassal, so the person in charge of the residences of the lowest vassals, the samurai garrison administrator, which was probably the guy that we find dying close by and that was dressed very differently from a normal guard, and the priest, which was charged to the big Buddhist temple right next to it. But of all these things, this is my speculating and I'm not entirely sure about it, so take this with a grain of salt. Next, I want to talk about the carps that we find in the river, and breaking a little bit my own structure, I will talk about the treasure carp scale item now rather than later. So, carps in general in Japanese are called koi, and nishikigoi are the color carps, like the beautiful white and red ones that we find, the giant ones that we find in the river. I will talk later about the differences between these two terminologies, but for now I can already say that carps in general are one of the most popular symbols in Japanese general symbology. They represent luck, health, perseverance, and courage in the face of adversity, which were all virtues that were very beloved by especially the samurai culture of Japan. The reason for this is mostly the Chinese myth of the carp that can ascend a waterfall and turn into a dragon by going through the dragon doors. So carps are also symbols of ascension and of great rewards following hardship and the possibility of failure. While wild koi were eaten, nishiki-goi were treated as living jewels, hence the name, which literally means brocade carp. The colorful scale of a nishiki-goi are not because they are different species, they're just made from mutations. They were bred to be beautiful, and different breeds of carps were therefore created. Now, I couldn't find anything about carp scales specifically in folklore, but thanks to the connection to dragons, I found something about dragon scales instead. Oriental dragons are normally peaceful and non-aggressive towards humans in legends, but they are said to possess under the throat a reverse scale, which if touched makes them mad with rage and therefore dangerous. This link will become more relevant later on as we discover more about the carps and their significance in the game, but for now I wish to remark that I think every cap that we found for now only drops one carp scale each, which might be a difference. I'm not entirely sure that all the caps will only drop one scale, but I am reasonably certain that that's the case, which indicates to me that the treasure carp scale that we collect is not just a random scale, it's a very specific one, that is the one that we can exchange with the Pot Noble. Lastly, talking about the item itself, the overall description is correct, but there is a significant small difference. What in English is translated as the master, in original is nushi, a word that can mean master, as in the master of a household, for example, if it is written in kanji, but in plain hiragana, like in the text, it indicates something else entirely, which is a very ancient animal tied to a specific place that due to its age has acquired mysterious powers. Think of something like a fishing legend of this very old huge fish that no fisherman has ever managed to catch but everyone has seen, like all the experts have seen, or like the legend of the king of the forest, this ancient boar that lives nearby a hunter commune that is said to kill every hunter that comes after it. It's those kind of folkloristic, magical, ancient animals. That's a nushi. So that tells me that what we can expect is that people following and worshipping the nushi are people who are worshipping a very ancient animal of some kind that is connected to carp scales, which is interesting and pretty different from what the English translation lets us to believe. Next, I want to talk shortly about the sandals that we find hanged around the fireplaces in the houses that we have visited. Now, these kind of sandals are called waraji, and are traditional, very cheap rice straw sandals that were the most common footwear of the time. Now, I unfortunately haven't found information of how people usually acquire these, like if they were usually homemade or if there was craftsmen that you bought them from in a village or something like that. But considering how cheap and not durable these were, it was very common for people to have like a lot of spares, so I think more than people making them in their house, and this is why they were hanged around, these were just either the spares or the one that were like in use and they just hang them around their house. If anyone has more information about how they were actually used, it would be very precious, but in general, yeah, that's my take on it. And lastly, to conclude this section, the blue flowers that surround the Buddhist temple, I believe, are hydrangea flower, also known as ajisa in Japanese. Now, the hydrangea, as I discovered doing this research, is an interesting flower because its color is determined by the acidity of the soil in which it is planted. So it is mostly blue in Japan, but it can be a variety of other color depending on where it is planted, and therefore has a lot of different meanings depending on its specific color. The general meaning of the plant in Japanese flower language is mutability for this very reason, heartfelt emotion and rootlessness. But blue hydrangea in particular also has the meaning of emotional coldness, patience and heartlessness. Now, I do not know if any of this meaning is actually relevant or if it is just an aesthetic choice to have hydrangea around here. I assume that if somebody made that choice, they made it for a reason, but I cannot really tell. The closest guess that I can make is that it is somehow connected to the NPC that we find here, the looter. But even then, none of these connotations seems to represent him very well, so this might be a case of kind of making a first impression of the player that will be expanded or subverted later as we discover more about him, or there might be something else that I'm just missing. Again, if anyone has any idea, I would be very glad to hear it. And now I will move on to the dialogues and lastly the item description, which is where this episode will absolutely shine, in my opinion. I want to open this section talking about Hanbei because this is the last we're going to see of him for a long while, so this is my way of saying goodbye to him. The dialogues revolving around him this time around are all pretty accurate in general, but I find them a little bit more moving in Japanese in its details. Firstly, it's because when Wolf thanks him, it's one of the longest sentences he said up until this point in the game, and it's so formal and respectful in the way it is formulated. It's a very convoluted and respectful way to say thank you that makes it very noticeable considering what we know of the character of Wolf up until this point. Also, Hanbei's words are even sweeter in Japanese than in English, because he doesn't say that he's glad that it was of use of someone in general, but to Wolf in particular, that makes his curse more bearable. It makes him think that maybe there was some meaning to it after all. So, overall, a send-off to Hanbei, a very underutilized character that I love very much, and I hope that he will be fine staying there for almost the rest of the game without any interaction with us. Goodbye, Hanbei. This next part is where the site that Eric Gondo gave me was absolutely invaluable because there were a lot of eavesdrops in this video, and those are hard to find during playthroughs unless I'm watching playthrough of somebody who is being very careful about them, and on the side they were just written down, so that was them. Starting with the eavesdrop dialogue outside the small temple where we find the axe. This dialogue was translated pretty accurately and is not exactly one of the most important overall, but it's so dense of small differences which are mostly due to the fact that the bandits speak in a very specific slang that is very hard to translate properly in English, so I want to spend some time to kind of underline a lot of differences, and this will be useful to kind of understand the tone of the bandits overall. It's also a little dialogue that fascinates me because of a lot of things that are said, so let's spend some time on it. Firstly, the term used by the bandit here is not boss, but aniki, which just means big bro in Japanese, and it's used amongst like gangs or other assortment of manly men to refer to someone which is not necessarily of higher official rank than you, but it's somebody that you respect of your same rank, somebody who has been there for longer and then you look up to. Secondly, there isn't a mention of actually burning this temple. The bandit just says, "What about this temple?" and his companion is like, "No, let's move on to the next thing." More than implied burning, this just sounds like implied looting to me, which is more in check with what they were actually saying later of, you know, taking the riches. Third, we get to hear the name of Jizo here, called Jizo-sama, whose name is composed of the kanji for heavy and possession together with the honorific sama. This is a generic honorific used to refer to someone of much higher rank than oneself. but I'm not sure that I agree with the translation of it as Lord, as it feels completely inappropriate for the context in which it is used here. It is not an easy terminology to translate, but I would have gone for something like Master Jizo, or even better, if we wanted to keep the tone, Boss Jizo. Lastly, the guy doesn't call him thick-skulled, he calls him an octopus, to which the other responds, "I'm sorry I'm such an octopus, bro." This is very funny to me. The second and last Eavesdrop dialogue regarding the bandits is the one outside of the door. This is, again, overall accurate, but it has similar problems with the tone, where, for example, they translated this sentence as "surrender peaceably or regret it later" or something like that, instead of the more accurate "surrender quietly or you'll get hurt." In general, the bandits are coarse, speak in very thick slang, and act like generic villains, so not always the English translation managed to reflect that exactly, which leads me to believe, but this is just wild theorizing, that the translators probably got the sentences out of context, and that's why sometimes they're weirdly eloquent. And to conclude, the last Eavesdrop is the one that we get inside the garrison, or the place that I assume was the residence of the garrison soldiers, a low-tier samurai, with the wounded warrior and the woman tending to his wounds. The first of the small differences that we get from this is the fact that he refers to the Shinobi hunter as a Sohei specifically, which is a warrior monk, which is in check with what we discovered thanks to the Gokan Sugar, which I will go on further on, but it's also interesting that this specific terminology is used here. And also, more critically, it doesn't specify that there is just one Shinobi hunter or many. It doesn't specify the number of them. Japan is often vague on the number of things, unless it's very openly specified, which means that in translation it's common to find this kind of ambiguity. Apart from that, it is pretty accurate overall, and all the other dialogues, as I said, in this same area are all accurate. Next, let's talk about the looter, which is a fascinating character to treat in translation because the English translators took a lot of creative liberty with these dialogues. If I were to stick to just the form of it, like what words he says and how, there would be a lot of differences, but I actually feel that the tone and the meaning behind it are kept pretty much the same. It's very accurate in a way, I find, so I appreciate this kind of translation. They managed to not bother with the hard terminology, the terminology that was the most difficult to translate, and just kind of rewrite him in a way that gets the same end result. So instead of focusing a lot on the differences, because those would be a lot and it would be mostly pointless, I want to just remark on the couple of terms that were kind of left out of a translation entirely because they had more complex meaning in original. The first one is that, like any other NPCs until this point, he has a very specific way of saying you to Wolf, of referring to Wolf, that indicates something about the character and the relationship to us. His choice is Danna, which is a term that can be loosely translated as master of, like, governor, used for example by a shopkeeper with an illustrious customer and the like. So there is this kind of servile attitude towards us that is then undercut by the way that he actually treats us. Its attitude in general is a very interesting mixture between being friendly and subservient, but also kind of disrespectful and dismissive. The second thing is the term he uses for looter here is a bit more complex. In Japanese, this is kajiba dorobo, which literally means thief of the scene of a fire, and it indicates someone who loots the scene of a disaster after the disaster has already happened and it's not related to what they did, like somebody who, after a house is burned down independently, gets into a house to steal from it. which further solidify the fact that he is not with the bandits, he's just following in the wake and taking advantage of the chaos they leave behind. Overall, quite a quizzical character that we will see more of in the future, especially when we get to explore the pagoda that he mentions. Lastly, we have Pod Noble Harunaga, and if you, dear viewer, were expecting to find some clarification on what the hell he is in this in-depth translation analysis, then I'm afraid I will have to disappoint, because there really isn't any further clarification. If possible, it gets even a little bit more confusing. So starting from the basics, his name, Harunaga, is made of the kanji for spring and long, so his name just basically means long spring. He refers to wolf as onushi, which is a very archaic term used to refer to someone of equal or lower rank, so he's kind of talking down to us, in a way. The way that he talks is what is most fascinating rather than his singular individual differences between the translation, because overall his dialogues I feel are pretty accurate in meaning, but in Japanese he talks in a much more vague and slightly unhinged way. For example, his phrasing here is not "bring them to me and I'll reward you handsomely," but "if you carry any, you shall be rewarded to your heart content." And here, rather than "I thank you for your kindness," it's something more like "for your dedication you have earned recognition." So he's very ambiguous, and I am sad to say that I don't have much else to say about him at this moment, but we will come back to him, especially when we get more stuff from his shop and we discovered more about where he comes from and what his role is in general, and especially his fixation with Carps. And now I will conclude by going over the item descriptions, which is where most of the meat in this episode I feel is located. These descriptions are fascinating for a lot of reasons. The first is just the differences in translation, in the sense both that there are significant differences, but especially that a lot of items had entire chunks of a description of the original Japanese text just missing from the English for one reason or another. The second is that there are going to be a lot of cultural references that are just skipped in English as usual, but there is one item which is the Divine Grass, which is just a mine of interest to me that is completely lost in English, and that one is the one that I cannot really explain to myself why they just butchered it so much. But yeah, let's get on with it. Starting with some of the items with the least interest, there are the new recovery items. So the first is the Dousing powder. The original name for this item is Hikeshiko, which literally means fire extinguishing powder, so it is accurately translated, they just made it a little bit prettier to hear. The term Hikeshi also has the meaning of firefighter, or the one who puts out fire, so this could have also been the firefighter powder, technically. The translation is overall accurate, but there is a little bit of lost nuance. The correct, or at least my interpretation for a correct translation for the last two lines, is something like, "In times of war, dousing powder is indispensable in preparation for a fire attack." This is significant for two reasons. First, the term hizeme, or fire attack, was an official term indicating the use of fire in warfare. Sun Tzu, for example, talks about it in The Art of War, which tells us how common these kind of tactics were in sieges and the like. And direct conclusion to this, it tells us that this medicine wasn't just carried in case of a fire attack, but was standard equipment for troops that employed fire attack themselves, which this may just be my reading of English text, but I felt like this was a little bit lost. Like I gathered that these were medicines used in case to treat burns, but not specifically they were standard equipment for troops that set fire to things, if that makes sense. Next we have the Antidote powder. I don't have much to say about this translation, except for one very small thing. I think this is the first time that we get the Sunken Valley clan mentioned in the game, and while I think this translation works very well in context, it conveys the right information, the original term for clan, which is shu, is not exactly equivalent, because a clan is technically a group of people tied by blood relations, while shu is much more informal and ambiguous. So if I were to be very particular about it, I would translate this as like the people of the Sunken Valley or the Sunken Valley folks rather than the clan. But this is such a small point that I wouldn't even call it a complaint, really. Then the Withered Red Gourd, which is the last of recovery items that I will treat now, because the Divine Grass requires its own section later. So, there are two main differences in the Withered Red Gourd description between the English and Japanese text. One is very small and one is bigger. The small one is that the gourd is specified as not being just withered, but also bent, twisted. The big one is that the last two lines of the description were entirely omitted in English. These loosely translate as, "This gourd sprouts from scorched earth and grows bent. Therefore, its medicinal water possesses the power of resisting flames." This suggests to me that the healing gourd is then a species, and this twisted version a specific mutation caused by environmental factors, in this case, scorched soil. It also opens the possibility to more mutation depending on different kinds of soil. I do not really know why this section was omitted from the English, other than maybe they just didn't want to include the twisted part, and so they just cut this out as well. I have no idea. Next I will go over those skills whose English translation wasn't just perfectly accurate. First of which, the Chasing Slice, whose translation is overall accurate, but there is a small thing missing. The Japanese name for this skill has an initial section that in English was not translated. Its literal translation would be derived attack, Chasing Slice, but as derived is meant in a sense of originating from, my take on it would be something like chained attack, or combo attack if you want to be even more jargony. The classification of derived or chained or whatever attacks is used for various techniques of the prosthetic skill tree, specifically all the techniques that link an attack after you use a specific prosthetic, and that nomenclature is just not there in English for some reason. The second is a bit more complicated, and I feel like it's one of those things where I'm missing a bit of the nuance because my Japanese is just not good enough. The Mikiri counter in Japanese is just called Mikiri, which means to abandon or to forsake. The translation is pretty accurate overall, but a final chunk is just missing, which I can roughly translate to, if you make one mistake you will die, but through abandonment you can achieve an immediate kill. This is how a shinobi think. I'm not entirely sure how to correctly interpret the abandonment part of this, if it is for example referring to forsaking one's fear of death, to abandoning yourself to the motion of the technique, to following pure instinct, or what exactly. This ambiguity might be why they just didn't bother with that and just left it as Mikiri, even though it's not an English word, it just sounds cool, but I might be missing, I'm definitely not getting the full context, so if anyone has any idea, it would be great to hear that. Next, I would talk about the ninja prosthetics and the prosthetic esoteric texts, and a little bit how that refers to the sculptor. So starting from the flame barrel and the flame vent, the translation is overall accurate, I don't have much to add. It actually fixes a little thing, the fact that the flame barrel and the flame vent in original have the same exact name, which literally translates to the fire-breathing barrel. I actually approve of this change, because having these two separate items have the exact same name was a bit confusing. This is also the first time I think that the red eyes are mentioned, but the original text doesn't really offer any more insight than the English translation already has. Secondly, there is the shinobi axe and the loaded axe that you can make with it. First, I want to absolutely underline that the suffering posture that we find the sculptor in when we visit him is triggered by us taking the axe out of the temple where it was offered or enshrined or whatever, so there is a definite link between this character in case it wasn't already pretty abundantly clear by the fact that in the item description it is mentioned that this axe was abandoned together with the left arm of the user, which is the arm that is missing from the sculptor. So, Firstly, the original name for the Shinobi Axe of the Monkey is the Shinobi Axe of the Flying Monkey, to be precise. They kept this extra bit, the flying bit, in the description, but translated it as bounding rather than flying, I guess because it just sounded better, but the rest of it is accurate. The term loaded axe, instead, in original can also be translated as prepared axe or stored axe, in the sense of it being hidden in something else. For example, this is the same nomenclature used for a cane sword, there is a sword concealed within a cane. So that kind of explains to me why it is called the loaded axe, which as a name never really made that much sense, but now it's a bit more clear. The rest of the translation is perfectly accurate. And lastly, the prosthetic esoteric text. Now, the translation of this is accurate, and I will not go over the same details that I talked about with the previous esoteric text about what does esoteric text mean in context, but there is a section missing from this description as well, right in the middle, which I can roughly translate as: this is not something that can be called a martial arts school. It is a series of techniques and martial art moves that have meaning only if one possesses a shinobi prosthetic, which doesn't add much, but it's a little bit of extra context about the item and the prosthetic itself. And now there are the items that require a little bit of a dive in Japanese culture, mythology, folklore, and all of that, starting with the bundled Jizo statue. So, Jizo is one of the most beloved bodhisattvas in Japanese culture. I don't think that's how you pronounce that, but unfortunately that's the best that I got. A bodhisattva, for those of you who don't know, is, in very short, I actually very much recommend that you check it out for yourself rather than listening to me, but in very, very, very short, is a person who has ascended to Buddhahood but chose to remain behind to help other people achieve enlightenment, and is worshipped by some sect, I think the mainstream sect of Buddhism does, but not all of them, as something similar to a guardian deity or guiding angel role. So they are spiritually superior entities that guide Buddhists and humanity closer towards enlightenment. Jesus specifically is the protector of children living and dead, taking care of them in the afterlife instead of their parents. For this reason, Jesus statues dressed in red baby clothes, a color believed to ward off evil, were common offering from parents to pray for the souls of dead children. As such, I think using one of these items might be morally questionable, as we might be taking on for ourselves the blessing reserved for the child. The rest of the translation is overall correct, even if in English it sounds a lot more ceremonial than in Japanese, which is much more matter-of-factly in explaining it. Then there is the Gokan Sugar item. Like all sugars, the translation of this item is very complex, and I will be referring to Reddit user 0LXX work for further context. The kanji for Gokan, read together, means something like strong and posture, so the first one is strong, the second one is posture. But the first one is a reference to the name of the Wisdom King Kongoyasha, together with the item illustration, which also closely resembles depictions of Kongoyasha. The 5 Wisdom Kings are Buddhist guardian deities and wrathful representations of the 5 Wisdom Buddhas. Kongoyasha specifically is known as the Devourer of Demons, and used to be a man-eating evil spirit before being saved by the teaching of Buddha, wherefore he reserved his endless devouring only to evil men and demons. This already gives us an idea of the character of the mercenary shinobi hunter warrior monks. Regarding the translation itself, this is overall correct and in line with the rest of those of other sugars, with just a small additional difference of the Japanese description specifying that Misen Temple not only produces these candies but also sells them wholesale. Lastly, Mount Misen is a real sacred mountain located in Hiroshima Prefecture, but while it has a bunch of legends, shrines and temples associated to it, Misen Temple itself appears to have been invented for the game, and is not a thing that exists, or nothing that I could find at least. And now finally the crown jewel for this episode, the Divine Grass. The translation for this item was so butchered in English and so complex even without that I will have to spend some time on this. I am again referring to Reddit users 0LXX for a lot of the translation, which can be found in the description. Firstly, the name is a mess, so I really don't blame the translators for just not bothering and calling it Divine Grass. The original name is Kamihami. Hami is an outdated term that means to eat grass, very specifically, while Kami loosely means god, but it has a very specific meaning in Shinto that will go on later because it's going to be relevant. So together they form something like god that eats grass, or edible grass of the gods, or something like that. So Divine Grass is a fine translation from that, and that's it. So what is a kami? Shinto is an animistic belief in that it posits that everything that exists has something similar to a divine spirit, which is called a kami. Kami are innumerable, but not all are equal. The kami of the sun, for example, Amaterasu, or that of a great river, are going to be much more important and powerful in a way than that of a paper cup or a pedal, in that the well-being of the physical manifestation can have a great impact on the life of people. Important kami are to be respected, tended to, and worshipped, which is the main function of like Shinto priests or Shinto shrines and stuff like that. Kami are hidden from humans, as they live in a realm which is parallel to our own that reminds me a little bit of Plato's world of pure concept of ideas, a place inhabited by the true pure essences of things that we should always be striving towards. Now, why is all of this relevant? Mainly because the English translation of this item not only removed any and all mentions to the kami that were so important, as we'll get to it, but they also just added more stuff on top of it which was just not in the Japanese and completely changes the context of this item. So first off, the Japanese translation specifies that this is not just a secret medicine, but a very ancient one as well. Then, the section about the old part of Ashina is not wholly incorrect, but left out a lot of details and was truncated short. My own take for a more correct translation would be something like, the plants that grew in the particularly ancient soil of Ashina attracted a multitude of small, nameless kami. This, intending this medicine, is made by kneading those plants. Eating the kami together with the grass, it is a secret medicine that must be taken with humbleness and gratitude. But the last lines is where it gets really interesting, because the Japanese version and the English version have simply nothing to do with each other. Dogen is not mentioned in Japanese text, he has nothing to do with this medicine, it is much more ancient than he was, and mentioning him in this way makes the context very confusing, because we often find this item in places where Dogen has no way of having been or having access to, like for example a weird creature inside a pot. Instead, the original text reads as such. However, after the divine dragon took roots, these same small kami all hid themselves away. Now, there are a lot of things of notice here. First, I believe this is the first mention of the Divine Dragon proper. The only mention to a dragon until now is in the Dragon Heritage, but we have too little information to go on for now to make any further claims, so we will go back to the Divine Dragon in the future. Secondly, the verb used is very specifically to take roots in a literal sense, like a plant would take roots. And lastly, the phrase that I translated as hid themselves away, or more literally concealed their shapes, has the connotation of not being gone from where they were originally, but just camouflage or out of view, which I assume is why this medicine actually still works in the game. So yeah, overall this was a beast of a translation. I think this is the biggest in the entire game, and yeah, I have no idea why they changed this so much. I have no idea why they felt that they needed not just to omit a lot of things, but to add context that just makes it more confusing for the player. And that was it. This was incredibly long, by far the longest videos I've ever made, so thank you so much for sticking until the end, and I hope that I will be able to keep doing this a little bit more quicker this time. I am starting my PhD, so I assumed I will have less time than before, but maybe I will also have more strength to do it, and pandemic depression will kind of leave me alone and allow me to be more productive. But yeah, I hope everyone had a good time, and I hope you're all safe and nice, and that you'll have a good day or evening or whatever, wherever you are. Goodbye, everyone.